Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog Arichcomiclife. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 800 comedians and counting over the last 46 years. My guest today is the wonderful comedian Mr. Patrick Monahan. Yes! Hello, mate!
Good to see you. Oh my God, Rich, you have seen more gigs than I've done. I mean, how many was that? You said 600?
800.
800.
There's 800 and something comedians on the blog at the minute, and I'm only on the letter N.
Yeah, you're going to be fantastic. That is brilliant. Well, you know what? Hopefully, if there's another lockdown, you'll be able to do all the other world as well.
Exactly.
You'll be like literally going A to Z, and then you'll start using the Arabic alphabet.
How are you though? Anyway, it's great to see you.
Great to see you. Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you. It's been so good. I mean, it's so nice because normally when I see you, it'll be either going into a gig or leaving a gig, and you're with other people. You can see, like, you've got that. We're in a different place. Where are we tonight? What place is this? What's happening? Where is it? It's quite funny now because we're actually in each other's houses. I'm in my house. Technically, it is so funny, isn't it? Where you just think,
it's incredible. You can see in everybody's houses.
Yeah, I was impressed with I mean, look at your backdrop. It's absolutely fantastic.
The books.
That's the key, isn't it, to a great Zoom or when you're on the computer, is to have a lovely display of what you've been reading, what you've been watching. Basically, yours is amazing autobiographies, all them books you've got, and mine is literally just a TV with Netflix. I mean, look,
well, you can't beat Netflix.
I know. And do you know what? I've been so good. When I started the lockdown, I was watching a lot of telly, and then I just haven't for the last. I think after the second lockdown, I was just like, I've watched.
It can get a bit tedious.
Yeah, exactly. And then people go, watch a bit of comedy, and I don't know if you've seen it because it'll be interesting to know what you think. But have you ever seen it? You know, when you're watching, if you watch some comedy shows, have you seen it where they're socially distanced?
Yeah.
And it was funny. Like, I love watching people like Kevin Hart, who's amazing, and you watch him, and he's normally in like 60,000 people in a stadium, 100,000 people, and he's like, oh my God, it's electric. And then they put one out, I think recently, and there was like 18 people in it.
They're all like me going bananas.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, who's he gone from like 80,000 people to 16?
Anyway, we are going to talk about your comic career.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to go right back to the start. And if you can tell me, how did you become a comedian in the first place?
Well, it's quite interesting because when I was first growing up, I didn't have a clue what comedy was, what stand-up. I mean, I obviously knew, entertainment and stuff like that, but I didn't realise, people like Dave Allen, people like Michael Barrymore, these people that you see on the telly. You didn't realise that these were actually really skilled comedians because our sort of generation, we were growing up, we just thought, oh my God, even like, Lily Savage.
Yeah.
Who was the other one? There used to be loads, wasn't there? Like the generation came up. But even like Les Dennis, you just see people and you think, how are these people so funny? I mean, they're so good. Because normally when you see a presenter, it's normally like Eamon Andrews, remember, like, Life or Michael Parkinson, and you just think, oh yeah, they're very good, very professional. And then suddenly you get someone like Lily Savage come along, you think, bloody, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But Dave Allen was a big inspiration for me because I didn't realise he was a stand-up comedian because we would watch him and he was just sat there and he would just talk. And I remember my dad would come in. My dad would be like working in the blast furnace or the steelworks. He'd come in covered in grease. He'd have a boiler suit. He'd be working 12-hour shifts from 6 in the morning. And then you'd see him on an evening where you put Dave Allen on and he's cracking up like a kid laughing. And I thought, this guy's great. And I didn't understand half the stuff, but I just loved what he did. And I think subconsciously that got into my head. So when I left the Northeast, I went across to the Northwest in Liverpool and I was doing bits and pieces, but no stand-up, didn't even know what that was. I was at college there doing stuff. And again, stand-up wasn't really, there was a huge, obviously, in the 90s, it was the alternative comedy circuit, but I didn't didn't start till after like 2000, so I didn't know what all the big thing was. Again, like Bottom, Rick Mail, whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought these were like actors, I didn't realize there was like a stand-up skill to it. And then so it was when I first came down to London, I just thought, do you know what, there was like these little, there used to be a Time Out magazine. This shows how long ago it is. I mean, they don't do it anymore now. And back then you would literally, I think it was ridiculous. It was like £2 for a thing, because they'd sell millions of these in London because it was all tourists, people come. And it was like this, it was like a telephone directory each week. Do you remember the magazine in Time Out?
I remember it well, yeah. You used to have to ring up and book.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The phone number was like 01732. And it was like, what the hell? Like the old-fashioned, no mobile numbers. It was all like this. And it was literally, there was about, there'd be like 100 pages of theatre and live shows, like 50 pages of music and all this. And then there was always about 3 or 4 pages of comedy. Do you remember where the stand-up? So I remember just looking at, and I didn't know anyone in London. I had like a sibling, or a couple of siblings, like some family bits and pieces down there, but I didn't really know anyone. So I just thought, you know what, I'll go along to this thing. I got this, one of the Time Out things, and I went, I'll go and watch a bit of comedy. I think I remember seeing something like Lee Evans or something on the telly.
Wow.
I realised, that was the first time I realised, oh my God, so these people, this is what stand-up is. They do stuff. Because when I was younger, if you said to me, Richard, you went, okay, Pat, when you're older, you're just going to be travelling around and performing to like roomfuls of people who've been drinking, and you're just going to talk to you. You're mad. Of course I'm not going to. I don't want to do that. Who are these people? I mean, who are these people? And then, so I came to London, and the first gig I did, it literally was a thing called the Purple Turtle. I don't know if did you ever go to that one in Islington? Because there was another one in Camden, but that was much
I've
later.
heard of them. I didn't get to them. I was more the Comedy Store, Jongleurs, downstairs the King's Head, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh no, well, Jongleurs, and Comedy Store, they were all great. They'd been going years and years, but the Purple Turtle was more like an open mic gig.
Right.
It was literally, it's not there anymore now. It's Hybrid, isn't it? And the Angel and all that. So you go up the road. It's built into flats now, but it was like one of them bars there. And this was the gig. You turn up, and I rang, but I didn't realise people just turned up. But I rang I go, can I come do this? They said, come down, we'll put your name down. I turned up. Literally, as you walk in, right, you open the door swings open, there's a pallet on the floor, just like literally a wooden pallet. So when the door opens, it smacks this pallet, which is meant to be the stage. There's a mic stand. So these people are already on there nervous. People are just walking out, and they're just making them even more, like just knocking them.
Yeah. Wow. And, my first ever gig was aged 8 on a holiday to Scarborough, and we went to see Les Dawson. And then the following year, this would be in the 70s, and then the following year we saw Tommy Cooper. And you mentioned Rick Mail. He came to Carlisle, and we went to see him, and he was extraordinary. He was a highlight in the 80s. And so there I am in Carlisle, and I came to London in 1988, and my first gig at the Comedy Store was Richard Morton, John Maloney compared it, Hattie Hayridge, Linda Smith, Dear Lee, Mist, and top of the bill was Charles Fleischer, who was this nutter, this American nutcase, but he was never heard of again because he went on to voice Roger Rabbit in Hollywood and he made his millions. So I was so pleased to see him, and got the bug, and here's the blog. So what year did you come down to London then from the northeast?
So I came, I went from the northeast across to Liverpool, and then Liverpool down to London about end of 99, 2000.
Right.
So I came down, so I'd probably end of 99, 2000, and then started doing gigs, open mic gigs in middle of 2000.
Right. I've been many a audience friend to many a comedian who has started out and done these 5-minute gigs in pubs, and I love to go and support them. Is this how you started? Did you bring friends along, and built it up from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the problem I had was because when I came to London, I didn't know anyone apart from there was a couple of siblings, you know, like family, but there was no one that I knew. So basically, when I came here, I started to get little odd jobs. I was doing stuff. It was hilarious. I was doing jobs like handing out flyers for a nightclub. It was called Samantha's on Oxford Street. I don't know if you know that. And it was hilarious. I was like in my early 20s. I was doing that, and that was great. I think that was like my first start into comedy because it was literally on a night you'd be handing out flyers, and you'd obviously get paid more if you brought people to the club. So I was like sort of bantering like to groups, comparing a group of people on the street, going, "All right, well, Saturday, where are you going to?" And then I'd take them in the club, and I started doing that Friday and Saturday nights. But again, that was and that's how I met people. I met like a few people from who worked there also. And then, so it was hard for me because when I started doing open mic gigs, I was quite lucky. It was a double-edged sword because for us, when we started in 2000, 2001, there was none of that, you know, bring friends along, none of that paid to play or whatever, which was a huge thing. I think in the next 5-10 years, that's how a lot of the clubs, you know, the open mic clubs would get an audience. Yeah. But we were lucky. I think in 2000, 2001, 2002, people were just desperate to go and see something different. And also, it was like you were mentioning, you know, you could go and watch jonglers in a comedy store where you get great acts, but you're paying like 15, 20 quid.
Yeah. That was the problem.
Yeah, that was the problem. And you can't, you know, there's like 5 of you or 6 of you, and you want to go out for a meal and a drink and then watch a show.
Yeah. That's about 100 quid. Upwards.
Exactly. Yeah. People can't afford that in London particularly if they're paying rent, mortgage bills, and then a night out. So it was great. I remember doing like open mic gigs. Like my second gig or third gig was like in Brixton, Cold Harbour Lane. And so like the first one was free to get into, I think, for the audience. The second one was on a Friday night, Cold Harbour Lane. And the guy that did the devil, what's he called? The black guy, big tall black guy, and I think he might have passed away now. He's called. He was quite well known. He always used to
Felix Dexter.
No, not Felix. He wasn't a comedian. He was like really well spoken. He did like them shows on Channel 4 where it was like he would judge things like, you know, good or bad, and he would go to places. God, he was really well known. I'll have to find out. But anyway, so he was at this gig. He was just stood in the doorway, and it was great. And I just thought, oh my God, that's that guy from TV. And he just turned up, and I thought, is he performing? Wasn't even performing. He was just coming to watch.
He was just there.
This is brilliant. I thought, wow. And then it was like, I think it was like £2.50, £3 maybe in, and it was brilliant because, like, look, I was quite new, but on the bill there was a couple of other acts, and then the compere was a bit more professional. Even though, and then I think the closing act had done quite a few gigs. He was quite well known. So, you know, for the difference of, do you want to spend 20 quid plus travel to go in the West End and have a night out, and then, you know, pay for a taxi back and pay West End prices as well for drinks, or come to like somewhere out in Brixton or somewhere further out of town, pay 3 quid, and also the drinks were cheaper. And
brilliant, yeah.
It was easier to get an audience. I mean, I remember that gig. It was a small little room, but it was packed, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, and it's a shame. I think we were quite lucky back then that you could do that. You know, you could. Whereas now, it's like, it's hilarious because, I mean, this is quite interesting because I did a lot of my first open mic gigs in London for the first year or two, and it was great because I could go around and do 2 gigs a night. I could do like 12 gigs a week, even though I was an unprofessional comedian. I was like a brand new comic, but then eventually I would go back up north to do stuff. Right. But the problem was up north, and you know what it's like. I mean, between where you were from, Carlisle, and between where I'm from, like Middlesbrough, back then in 2000. Between that whole area, there was probably about 3 gigs. I mean, where in Middlesbrough there was no gigs whatsoever. There was the closest one, I think, there was Leeds Jonglers. The closest one was Newcastle Hyena. So I was literally in the middle of either the Hyena in Newcastle or Jonglers in Leeds, and that was it. You know, when I was in London, you could go out and there'd be 3 gigs on, like, you know, one street or whatever, you know. So it was.
It is amazing being here. I've been in London for 28 years and I absolutely love it. So you're on stage doing your stuff, What do you like to talk about mainly on stage? Do you have any themes? Do you have anything you keep recurring, or is it mainly spontaneity?
I've sort of, do you know, it's quite funny. I always look at people like Madonna, and I always think a comedians like that, you've got to keep constantly evolving. If you want to stay relevant and you want to survive in an industry, because comedy, you know, is entertainment, you've got to keep adapting to it, you know. And I think that's what I've been like, where, yeah, when I first started out, it was about, okay, you've got 5 minutes. Here's the jokes. There's no messing about. Hello, good evening. I come from here. This is what I do. Bang, bang. And it was like this. And then, and I was tight to doing the 5 minutes. And then I started, when I was traveling more, going out, because in London, you know, it's like, they've only got a certain time, 20 acts or 18 acts, or 5 minutes. We've got to be finished by 10:30, whatever. But then when I went up north, I was doing gigs, it was hilarious, because they would just go, right, there's only 3 comics on. The other lad's going to come across from Preston, so he won't be here for another hour and a half or so. Go on and just enjoy yourself, and then I'll give you a wave. You just go on it. You'll be like, oh, okay then.
Only in the north.
Yeah, we couldn't give a monkeys. They just let you go. So I was doing so, and then I sort of started doing a bit of banter, a bit of chat with it, and I thought, oh, actually, this is great. And I thought, oh, this is great, because actually for me, it's quite fresh, and also for the audience, it is, because the audience can say, oh yeah, wow, he obviously hasn't prepared this. This hasn't happened before. This isn't, and it's probably not going to happen again. He's not going to do this. So that became a big part of my evolution in stand-up, I think, because I went from a period of that where I was and I think I'm still the same, you know, I'm non-threatening. There's nothing really controversial. There's nothing, I'm not going to offend anyone. I'm not, you know, there's some comics who do that and they're brilliant at that, but that's just not my thing, you know. It's not. I was
just going to say, I think you're one of the best at being very endearing and very welcoming on stage, and it's wonderful to see, because whenever I do watch you walk out with such confidence, and you're like, right, I'm gonna make this audience laugh before I can carry it out, and you do. It's just fantastic.
Well, do you know what that is? And it's funny, because I know, like, that's a lovely thing to say. Thank you for that. And I know it's funny when people go, oh, it's confidence on this, but I think it's actually an enjoyment. I love it. I mean, it is so funny. Sometimes I think I even enjoy going to the gig more than the audience do. You know, like, you'll see some audience. Here's a classic. If you go to, like, things like, I always do Edinburgh Festival every year. If you go to these festivals, and you know, I just love. I mean, it's like you've landed in heaven. You know, everywhere there's comedy, you see everyone. Yeah, and it's brilliant. But what's so funny is after a week or a couple of days, you'll see some audience or some people, and you'll see them in the queue, and they've got like an itinerary list, and they look and they be like they're onto their like 70-second show, and they look like they're going to die, and you just
me. But I'm still going.
You're still silent. No, but you're like, oh, this is brilliant. But what I don't understand is you'll see some people who they've got loads of shows, but they're not doing it. They're just sitting watching the show, having a right laugh. But then some people go, oh, we've got too many shows. Yeah. I'm thinking, you're having a life O'Reilly. Just go and sit, have a drink, watch the show. It's
great. Exactly.
But I'm turning up like, I'm going, oh my God, I can't wait. Here we go. Gig number 782 tonight. Let's go. Let's rock.
I went on a half-day writing course when this blog was conceived, and I've told a lot of comedians this. I went, and there was a lot of reviewers, people who wanted to be reviewers, and the woman who ran the course came to me and said, we forget why we invited you here. I said, well, there was a comment on my blog, you very kindly invited me. I said, but can I just say, I'm not a reviewer, I'm not a diarist, I'm not a reporter, and I'm not a critic. I said, I'm a member of the audience, and I'm out to have a good time, and that's why this blog, I believe, is an enthuse for all the great people that go out there each and every night and perform. And she looked at me and she went, oh, we like you, and never bothered me again. Because Because that's what it's all about. Nobody wants to go and hear hecklers or people who think they're better than the comedians. They're there to see the comedy. Otherwise, you shouldn't be there.
Exactly. Honestly, Rich, and I'm not just saying this, but if there was like 600 people like you in the audience every night, it'd be, you know, it'd be bored. We'd like, everyone would be going, this is, you know what I mean? No one's going to be like,
Thank you very much.
No, but honestly, Rich, you're like a connoisseur of comedy, where it's like you're like the equivalent of a young male version of Mary Berry. You know, like the way that Mary
I think that's a compliment.
They turn like you can see people. They've obviously got Paul on them. Come on, you know you can bake this cake. Come on, we're gonna love it. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I can't imagine you having any bad gigs because you're that enthusiastic for your craft like me. You must have had some. We're talking about your best and worst gigs now.
Yeah, and listen, if you've ever met anyone who says they've never had a bad gig, then you honestly, that person who thinks they've never had a bad gig, they need help because they'll be deluded. even like Richard Pryor or Robbie Williams, the best of the best. I mean, they're going to tell you that, you know, and even watch it, and you're going to think these people cannot fail. They're never going to, but it's going to happen. Of course, it does. You know, and they only get better. I mean, look at, was it Dave Chappelle or someone who he was saying about. I mean, he's exceptional. You watch someone like. And you think this guy is not bulletproof, he's rocket proof. I mean, how are you gonna? You can't chink his arm. I mean, he's so good. And then there's footage of him where he got booed off stage and he died. You just think, what the hell's going? And then and the only reason he's doing that is because he's so good. He knows, and all making him better. And this is what I say to everyone, that, you know, look, anyone can do well at a gig, you know, where people have come to see you. And you're doing your thing, you know, anyone can do well. Look, you've got, you know what you're doing. Here's your routines. Here's the show. I'm going to get from A to B. This is what we do. I'll have a little mess about. The audience have seen me loads of times. The audience, I love them. They love me. We're going to have a right laugh. That's great. You can do that all the time and not a problem. But the problem is all these gigs, every time you keep doing well, you head into like one gig that's going to be disastrous. And normally for me, I've had a few where it's been, like corporates, you know, when people always go, I would never do a corporate. I love doing corporates because they are always a tough gig. But when you nail a corporate, when you smash a corporate gig where there's like, you know, 450 people dressed up in tuxedos and dresses, and half of them not even facing you, they're all in a big tables like this. But if you go on and you nail that gig, and then suddenly they're all turning their chairs out, and then it's brilliant. You're only meant to do half an hour, you end up doing like 45, 50 minutes. They want a bit more. It's great. And you've gone, do you know what? That is a gig. You think this gig was, you know, was unplayable really, but it's become a great gig. And so they're the gigs where you learn. And I've done some gigs that, where mainly, I mean, a couple of corporates I've done where, you know, you will just die. And what I always think is, I always come off to myself and I think, do you know what? Never blame the audience. You can't blame them. Yeah. I always think, I come off and I go, okay, what would someone else, what would Robin Williams done? What would Peter Kay have done? What would they done? And you think, if the audience didn't know who they were, if they went on and they weren't famous, how would they have done it? And you realise that, there's what they would have done is they're not going to nail everyone because not everyone's come to see you. It's like if you went to me, I want you to go and play the 19 night bus coming home at 1 a.m. Do you know what, Rich? I'm not going to be able to make everyone laugh, but if I can get 3 of their people to laugh, do you know what? That is a result. And this is what I always say to everyone, particularly if, you know, if you see younger comics or newer comics and they'll chat to you and go, oh God, I lost my confidence. I struggled with this, I did that. And I said, listen, you were only you're going to be about 5 times better than you were. You needed that gig. You know, that gig where you lost the audience, that gig where you didn't get everyone, that gig you did, because that's where you're learning. There's no point going on, you're going to do 100 gigs where they're going to keep laughing and clapping at everything. Because you go, well, God, if I say anything, you know, I can do it. You're not going to learn anything from that. So it was, yeah, I've had loads. I mean, God, I did a gig.
I think that's exactly right, because no matter whether you have a good gig or a bad gig, it's all experience, and it makes you a better comedian.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah. I did one gig, and it was it was like a corporate gig. And this is what it was like. Basically, they were all like not just multi-millionaires, but like billionaires. They were all like people who owned aviation companies. Like, you know, they owned like airlines. These people were ridiculously rich.
Wow.
And I said to the agent, what the hell am I doing this? I thought, how have I got this? Basically, what happened was they had like McIntyre the year before, and he was obviously getting a lot more than I was doing. And this is like only a few years ago. And McIntyre, it was huge, and he was getting paid loads for this gig. Right. And I got paid well, but obviously not the same as that. But when I turned up, and I said, oh, yeah, how's it going? And because they'd seen that obviously I can do material, but I can obviously deviate from the material. And they said that when I went on, I did the first bit. You have to go on, you do first, whatever, 20 minutes, and then you have a break. Then you go back on a bit more, then you do the awards. And when I went on and did the first bit, I thought, this is hard. I thought, they're hard. I mean, they're just sort of, I got a few of them, but not much. I was thinking, God, what is going on here? And then you realise, because they're not, their observations are not the same as us. You know, these people own airlines. These are billionaires. They don't have everyday observations like us. So we're doing jokes about the supermarket or, you know, these people don't know. They don't really know what a bag for life is. So it was like,
but again, because you're playing a specific audience, it's all experience.
Yeah, and then it teaches you, and then I thought, okay. And because I've done so many gigs, I was on stage and I was thinking, okay, I've got to go back on after this. And I thought, look, I can either stay here and die, or I can drop something and try and get into the audience. And I started playing with a few of them, and it was brilliant. Quite good. And I was like playing with a couple, and I was getting a few. Obviously, I was never going to win this audience, or all of them, but I'm getting some tables. And I thought, okay, let's get that. They're interested. Table number 3 is laughing. Let's keep them on board. Let's keep it. And then it was hilarious when I came off for the break, and then they had like this band playing. It was they had like a big hits in the charts. They'd pay this band loads, so they'd come on, then I had to come back on. Anyway, so when I came off, I went, bloody hell. And then one of the guys came over from the audience. He said, well done, mate. He said, we had Michael McIntyre here last year. He walked off after like 12 minutes.
Wow. I first saw him play a hut in Edinburgh, about 20 people. And you could tell then that he would be big. And with Peter Kay, I first saw him in a club in Manchester before he was famous, and he was on a bill of 5 acts. He was 4th on, and I laughed so hard I missed the 5th act. And I said to my mate, he's going to be a superstar. And I've seen both of them many times. They are very, very funny people.
I'm so jealous, because I'd never worked with, but I've seen him, Peter Kay, once. I was doing a gig in Crewe with Jason Manford. Peter Kay came to watch Jason, and it was funny. That's the only time I've ever sort of seen him walking in past. But I've never seen him. I'd love to see him live, because he's so good. But McIntyre, I have done loads of gigs with Mike McIntyre. Amazing. I mean, I knew even from, like you say, you know, when you first see them. I mean, he was around before I started, but I remember when I started doing gigs, same as like Mickey Flanagan. Yeah. You know, when you do these gigs, you turn up and you're like the open spot or the middle act, you're like the baby act, and then you see someone like Michael McIntyre closing, or Mickey Flanagan. And I'm watching, I'm thinking, why are they here? I mean, why are they not? What are they doing this? Why is this person not on TV just doing their own thing? I mean, what is going on?
Well, they were there to perform and to see how the audience were doing, etc.
But I'm just thinking, how is this person not here? How are they not? You know, they should be playing in Wembley Stadium already. You know, you just see them, and then it's not a surprise when you think, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's so good.
I had Justin Moorhouse on here, interviewed him, and he told me all about how he met Peter Kay and all about Phoenix Nights and everything. It was wonderful to hear, because there was such a good ensemble for that show. Anyway, let's move on to Edinburgh, because I go to Edinburgh every year, the Fringe. I first went in 2005. I absolutely love it. As soon as I step off the train at Waverley, the atmosphere just hits you, and it's incredible. And I go for a week. I always try and go for the middle week. I invite loads of friends who love it as well. And I see it must be about 50 shows, and I can't get enough of it. It's just the best atmosphere. Tell me about your first Edinburgh Festival, and what year was it, and what was it like?
Well, for me, again, because like I said, I didn't know what a live stand-up was before the year 2000. I didn't know that this was a career. I didn't know people could actually just go around to pubs, clubs, and make a living. I didn't even know these things existed. So Edinburgh Festival, I didn't even know it existed until 2001. I had entered a competition. It doesn't run anymore. Well, it doesn't run anymore. It was called the Daily Telegraph New Act of the Year competition.
Right.
And it was Avalon was sort of sponsoring it with the Telegraph. And so basically, I entered like one of these heats. They were doing like heats all over the UK. And you have to do one of the heats, then you go through to like a semi, then they put you through, and then if you get through that, then you go through to the final. So I'd done one of these heats. I was in like, and they ran them all across universities, across the UK. And I did one. Paul Sinner was on. Yeah. He was the professional act. I was the open spot. And I remember he was driving me back and was giving me some advice, and he was really nice. And then I don't know if I'd hear anything back. Then I heard back and they said, yeah, we're going to put you through to the semi-final. So I went into the semi-final in London, and they had judges there and everything. So they'd had like semi-finals all over like the UK, Scotland, Ireland. And in my semi-final, they had like a couple of critics and judges there. And John Maloney actually was comparing it. And loads of acts, really polished. Everyone was good at that. But yeah. I think, you know, with a final or a competition, because I'd done so many gigs at that point. I'd been going for a year. I was brand new, but I was gigging all the time, doing 5 minutes. And also I had a nice sweet spot on the bill. I was somewhere in the middle of this act. You don't want to be on too late. You don't want to be on too early. And then, yeah, and I don't know how I did it, but I managed to win that heat. And I was like, oh my God. And then I thought, oh, right, okay, this is brilliant. So what happens now? And then they go, right, you're going up to the Edinburgh Festival. I said, you're going up to Edinburgh. I said, what am I going up to Edinburgh for? And they went, and because at that point, I didn't know what Edinburgh was, because I suddenly was going to get loads of gigs in August, because all these open mics, there's no comics in London. So I thought, this is brilliant. Everyone's vanished. So let's do some gigs. And then they went, okay, this is 2001, August. They went, you're going up to Edinburgh. The finals there, they paid for the train tickets and the hotel. So all of us were in this final, 10 of us up there. And when I went up, we performed it was like a Pleasance venue in the Roxy, which I think is Assemblies now. Brilliant. And I remember doing it, going down there, and I think Al Murray was a judge. I think Mark Lamar was a judge. The guy, Nigel Lathorne or whatever it was, he was a judge, and someone else. And I remember just, it was packed. And I thought, oh my God, what is going on? Where are all these people coming from? And it's like,
it is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was 2:00 in the afternoon. And I was like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. And I thought, and then because we'd all done that, they and because it was Avalon, they gave us loads of tickets, like and passes, like a pass, and they said you can go and watch the other shows. So I was walking around Edinburgh, and I was like walking past people like, isn't that Steve Coogan? What's he doing? That's that guy off Channel 4. Who's he? And he was like,
it is. It's brilliant. It's so good. The first year I went, I had to go with stand-up comedy. First and last time. Well, never say never again. But the story, which I've told to many a comedian. I knew the chap who used to run the Free Fringe, and I said to him, I need to get this out of my system because I go and support everybody, but I think I could have a go and do it. And he said, we can put you on in the Haymarket for a gong show, which is for old folk, on a Wednesday afternoon. I said, all right then, okay. So I did this script about me crashing cars in Carlisle. I was never a very good driver, and I thought this is quite good. And I read it to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's really good." He said, "Right," he said, "You're on. You've got 3 minutes." So I walked out. There was 3 people in the crowd, and the first thing I said to them was, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, but I can't see the resemblance myself, the ski jumper." And somebody just yelled out the back, "Fuck off," and gunked me off. And I walked off to my own footprints. And then he said, "Go and have another go. There's another one later. Go and have another." So I had another go. Similar thing happened, and I said to him, "Look," I said, "I think my place is in the audience. Never say never." But
listen, Rich, that's a good joke. That is brilliant.
well, when I was at college, people used to stop me in the street because I was at college in Stoke in the late 80s when he was really famous. Yeah. And my friends at college got me to meet him. He was opening a Radio Rentals in Stoke. And I met him, and he went, "Oh my God!" I said, "I know."
He was a really nice guy.
Oh, he was brilliant. It was really lovely. Yeah.
That is so cool.
My 18th birthday was at a nightclub called the Front Page in Carlisle, and my brother did the tickets. The ticket said, "And once again, Eddie Edwards makes the front page." Anyway, enough of that. You also, and I really want to talk to you about this, you also hold the record for the longest hug at the Edinburgh Fringe, which was 25 hours and 25 minutes. Incredible. Yeah. That was achieved at the Edinburgh Fringe in 2013. I think this is a brilliant device to win over an audience. I've seen you many times do it. How did the hugging come about?
It was, do you know what? It's just a natural thing, I think. I think it's like, you know, with all comics or comedy, I think you've got to find your natural voice. And I think for me, like what you'd mentioned before, it's like, you know, when I come on, I'm not going to be threatening. There's no I'm not coming on. You know, some people come on and it's like, they go, it's them and us, I'm going to be like this. Whereas I come on and go, all right, what's that? I love coming on from the back of the audience. I don't want to come on from the back of a stage or something. I always hate it like that because you just feel like, okay, it's them and us your way. Whereas when I get a chance to, if I'm at a show somewhere, if there is a compare or someone's on, so obviously if I'm doing a tour show and you have to come from a theatre, you come on the back or the side. But if I'm at some other show, if there's a compare or someone on, so what I do is I always go, listen, I'm going to sit out the back. When you bring me on, I'm just going to walk through the audience. I'll come up through the side because I love it because it's like,
yeah.
How you do it? And then you might recognise some people, give someone a hug, and then you're getting on stage, and it's nice.
It's brilliant.
It's for me, it's really nice. Well, I love that whole thing. You know, you're connecting. We're having a good time. You know, it's live. It's happening, and I think it just naturally grew from there. Where you know, people just sort of knew me as the hugger or this guy that just don't sit in the front, he's going to hug you.
So it's really great. I think as well, doing something like that, once you've done something like that, you can then say practically anything to them because you've got them. They're on your side. They're wanting to have a good time, and I think it's terrific. I really do. It's such a good device.
Yeah, because and also it shows. I think it shows to them that look, you're a human being as well. You're not coming on. You're not just going to come. And there's nothing wrong with that. That you know, you get some great comics who'll come on and they'll go, "Good evening. So my name is. I do this. I do that," and that is brilliant as well. Look, Jerry Seinfeld, I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
But that works for him because he's so good. Like, you know, he's not gonna come and touch. He's not gonna handshake. So he's not gonna give you a hug. But he comes out and he's brilliant. You watch him do his stand up, and that's what he does. But I think for me, it's just like, do you know what? I want people to know that, you know what? I'm not gonna come on here and just, if you want to see me do my script in my show, then I've got DVDs. You can just sit at home. You don't need to come and see me live if you want to do that. Whereas this is a live experience. What you're going to see here tonight is going to be different to when you come and see me again in 6 months, or if you see me next year. You know, they're always going to be different shows anyway. You can come and see me in them.
I've seen you many times on stage, both at the Edinburgh Fringe and in London. I'm always sitting in the front row laughing loudly at you, and I think your routines are brilliant. Please tell me if you have a writing process or where your ideas come from, please.
Yeah, I mean, again, that comes from finding your voice over years of stuff. And I try and do the same thing. I've progressed with it a bit more now. Whereas when you first start out, it's like anything, you're doing any job, you've got to sit there and you've got to put the work in. It's like anything. No one's going to be able to write a book if they just go, oh, do you know what? I might, the deadline's for that in 6 months. I think I'll sit down, 2 days before it's got to go. You can't. With us, with stand-up, and this is why I love doing things like Edinburgh Festival, because doing Edinburgh show and tour every year, because you've got to tour, right? You've got to bring a new show every year. I'm doing Edinburgh every year. You get the same audience, plus you get their friends, plus you get family, plus you get some extra.
Yeah.
But you can't do the same thing. I mean, you can, but then that audience is not going to come back again, So what I do is I think, right, I'm gonna do a new show, and I always, you'll speak to other comics and they go, what are you doing every year? That's ridiculous. It's too much. I can't write a new 60-minute show for next year. I go, are you mad? What are you doing for the next 12 minutes? 60 minutes. I mean, and it's not even 60 minutes. You only have to write 55 minutes, because the first 2 minutes is you go, good evening, what's that? Hey, wasn't it? Oh God, bloody freezing again. I mean, there's your first minute or two, and then the last minute is like, hey, thanks for hey, listen. So anyway, I'm selling DVDs. How can you not write 55 minutes, 60 minutes a year? I mean, it's shocking. My dad used to, he'd be working at the blast furnace 6.5 days a week, and he'd literally have half a day off on a Sunday. He would work, and it would make me feel guilty, that I was going out doing it when you first start. You're doing gigs for like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, or 15 minutes. That's it.
It's so true. It's so true.
And half an hour, and you speak to these comics, or anyone, and they'll be going like, "Oh no, it's hard. I don't know if I can. I'm going to have next year off, because I need to." You've got 12 months. What the hell? I mean, you could literally, if you put that down, that's like you've got 12 months, 4 weeks a year. Even if you wrote 5 minutes, you wouldn't even have to write 5 minutes a month. I mean, that is ridiculous. And that's like 1 minute a week. So it's just shocking. So I always, and also it's like, at first, I understand. Look, at first, if you're already a comic who's been going for a couple of years, then it is quite daunting, because it is so hard to get that first 5 or 10 minutes, then 20 minutes. I remember that back then. But you've got no excuse once you've been going 5, 10 years, 15 years, because it's not that, because you're going to be so bored of doing that also.
Exactly.
And I was like that, where I couldn't wait for I got to a point now where I couldn't wait for the summer to come, June and July, because I'd been touring the last show, which was only, the last show was only 7, 8 months old. But I've got loads of these new ideas, loads of new stuff that I want to, and I'm going, I can't wait till June and July so I can just go out with a brand new hour.
Yeah.
Some will be good, some will be horrific, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be able to talk about new bits and pieces and just do so. And then go.
Yeah.
And, it's just, and how could you not,
Brilliant. I never. You won the television competitions Take the Mic in 2001 and Show Me the Funny in 2011. Describe these experiences. What do you think of competitions anyway? Do you think they're a good thing? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I think with the most important thing about competitions are they're not gonna make you a good comedian or a great comedian, but they are going to give you some skills. They're going to give you the stage time, which is what if you want to be a good comedian or a great comedian, you need to write material and perform. Competitions are giving you that. They're giving you that opportunity to say, well, look, we're going to give you a stage. We're giving you an audience. And we're going to give you a chance to perform. And in a competition, it's about you bring your best jokes, bring some good stuff, right for it. So all of this is great because it motivates you to do it. And then 2 competitions that you mentioned. I mean, I entered loads of different competitions starting out, because back then that was the only way you could get a decent audience.
Yes,
do that. I remember the Take the Mic 2001. I mean that. that was great because you'd get a mentor. We had Stephen K. Amos. Here's a classic thing. In that show, they basically, which you never saw on camera, the warm-up for that show was Michael McIntyre, right? And he was already, you know, he was already good. Like, and you watch him, because normally to be a warm-up for a TV show, which I've done as well, you have to have years of experience. You have to be, they're paying, you know, they're paying good money to, they're putting the trust in him to go, right, we need this one, because he's literally like the presenter that you don't see. He's going to get this audience laughing. And he was great. And I remember watching him and thinking, God, yeah, he's really good, this guy. And doing that show was so good, because it's like you feel that pressure of doing 5 minutes, I've got to perform, do my good stuff, and learn how to do it, and also, you know, play to a camera, play to the audience, play to judges. So you're learning different things, because these are things in life. And I say to people, look, definitely, if you get an opportunity, do some competition. Because listen, if you do a competition, and I've spoken to some like really like big professional like comics, big comics who had their own TV shows. I remember before I was doing Show Me the Funny, that one in 2011, spoke to a couple of people and they had their own shows, and some of them were really for it, and then some were, because I was getting advice to chat, and going, you've got to be careful, because you know, if you do this competition, it's going on TV, it could either way. It could be disastrous for you. It could be good or bad. No, look, you've got nothing to lose when you go and do a competition. Yeah, if you're Peter Kay, you're not going to go and do a 5-minute new act competition like Show Me the Funny. But the thing is, I wasn't really known. You know, I wasn't. Yeah. I'd done all the TV I'd done at that point was things like Paul O'Grady show, because I was doing the warm up for the show, and he was so good. He'd put me on the show, and I'd be on camera doing bits and pieces. Yeah. Well, I was starting to do stuff, but I was known to like a daytime audience of like women over 80, but apart from that, there was no other, you know. And it was great because you get to see them coming to your gigs.
It does. I think competitions obviously do give you exposure, and you get your name known, and it can obviously lead on to greater things.
And this is the thing. Do a competition, right? But do it knowing what you want to get out of it. Yeah. Don't do a competition if you've only done 7 gigs and then you want to, I want to become a arena selling tour comedian at a TV show. Then don't go and do a competition after 7 gigs, because they're not going to turn around and go, that was the best 5 minutes we've ever seen. That was the nights in the Hammersmith Apollo to do 2 hours. You're like, well, no. The thing is, you go on when you use the competition to help you get on a journey to somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to make you a great comic. So that's why I did them, but I loved them.
Yeah, good. We're all living in very strange times. It's been a horrible, awful year. Have you done many online gigs? How have you found online gigs as opposed to live stand-up?
Yeah, I've done loads. And do you know what the was? Like all of us, like everyone, I was, when it happened in March, the lockdown in March, I just assumed, I thought, oh yeah, it's only going to be a couple of weeks. I mean, I was still touring. I was literally in the start of like a, 50-day tour that was going all the way up to like end of May, start of June. And I was literally coming back. And I remember the lockdown, because I'd literally come back on a Tuesday, the Wednesday. I had like Liverpool tour show booked in that Thursday night. I had Billingham Forum booked in Friday night. We'd sold hundreds of tickets, so loads of stuff, people messaging like this. And on that Wednesday night, the announcement came, and Boris had said, right, we want people to stay at home, but do not go out. But they haven't closed anything down. They just said, don't go out. So literally, I was saying to my agent, so what we do? I don't understand. Do we still go to my agent? I think we could still go ahead. They seem to be more. And literally a day, Liverpool, they cancelled. They just said, look, we can't do this. People aren't coming around. Then on the Friday, I was still getting messages. People like, look, we've got tickets. What's happening? And I don't know. They're all putting on my social media and all this. And then even my agent was saying, yeah, the venue, they're still happy to go ahead, but they don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look back on it now, you think, God, how crazy was that? That we
weird.
Nearly thousands of people in a theatre in Billingham during like the start of this pandemic, and then they just cancelled it. So obviously they postponed it, and then And then I wasn't, I mean, I was a bit cut at first, but then I just thought, do you know what? It's only going to be a couple of weeks. We'll be back on it. And then, I mean, oh my God, it literally, everything, and it just went like dominoes. Ding, 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 everything. Thing in April, bam, 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 and then further. So I thought, do you know what? You can't wait around. You've got to start doing something different. So I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do some online shows. I started doing Zooms. I do them every Wednesday. I do a Zoom show every Wednesday at 7:15, and I do a live Facebook show every Saturday night. And it's brilliant. I get to do like, you know.
I've seen a few of your Saturday night ones. They're brilliant. Really good.
And it's great because you can just get to do something. And I know if people haven't seen it, they're going, "What? How does it work?" Well, it's dead easy because you are still performing. It's like you're doing a show.
Yeah.
But instead of people heckling or chatting or whatever, they just comment. They can write in. So it's like when I'm going like, "Good evening, anyway, this happened to me, you done this, and then people write in, and I can see the comments, and then I can react to it as if I was doing a survey in the audience. You know, like if you're doing a gig and you're going, right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, have we got anyone from the north? Who's here from the north? And then obviously people just write in going,
yeah.
And you know what? I think it's been good. It's been a good skill to do.
Yeah.
It's different. I mean, yeah, when I remember, it wasn't plain sailing. I remember doing, even now actually sometimes because of the Wi-Fi, you're always in trouble. It's, when I remember doing one of them, I think one of the Zooms back in like, I think April or May, and I forgot, you know, when your Wi-Fi has to be 100%. And I was doing it in one of the rooms in the house just over there and doing stuff. And then the bloody signal's going, so I'm freezing. And I've got all these people on the screen.
Believe me, that's happened quite a bit with me with this.
And it's annoying, isn't it? Because you can see it. I can see it. Trying to like walk in, so I'm in this room now. I have to come on where the router is, and then I'm literally,
it's a pain in the neck, really is.
To lay there like this, just on the foot, just get people and just like. But then I've learned now after that. I think find a good space, and then and it's been brilliant. I think I know some comics. I was thinking some people back then. And I do understand it's not for everyone, but I think it is. I think if you just really go for it.
I agree. I mean, my view is that it's a super substitute for the real thing. I mean, if it wasn't there, I don't know what I would have done in lockdown. I'd have just been looking at four walls. I go to Sean James's Happy Mondays one. I go to Always Be Comedy a lot, and I go to Jarlath Regan's Irish one on a Friday night. And when it first started, there was no audio, so I was just sitting here laughing at these four walls, and I thought I was going to be taken away. But then some bright spark, I'm sure it was James Gill. At Always Be Comedy, switched on the audio for the front row so they could banter and chat with the comedians, and they could hear them, so the timing and all the rest of it was really good. And all of them now have just gone through a year of lockdown, and you've got to commend them for doing that. When it's done well, it's really good. But on the other hand, you can't beat the real thing. I mean, I really miss going to the comedy clubs, headliners, Soho Theatre, whatever, and having a meal, a beer with my friends, and then a real guttural laugh at a comedy show where you're just experiencing what's happening in that one room at that moment. It's magical.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you need that. That's the whole point of live comedy, is that interaction with people. But I learned that as well. That was the thing you were saying about, when like the Facebook Live on the Saturdays, I get so used to that where, you can't hear people, you can see the message. But when I did the Zoom thing, that's why I love doing the Zoom, because you unmute people, so you have like the front row, screen where people, you can hear their laughter, and you're like, now we're almost there. And I think, look, there is no alternative at the moment. It's either do nothing or, get online. You've got to get online.
I really hope live comedy is going to come back very soon. I'm sure it is. Who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
So I, obviously Dave Allen was one of them, just amazing. I mean, you had seen bloody Tommy Cooper as well, who I thought was great.
He was magical.
Absolutely. I mean, these were the ones where you see them on TV and you just think, yeah, they're great at that. But I have to say, in terms of, for a different league though, I think people like Richard Pryor and Robin Williams, I mean, it just, when you watch people like that, then you think,
they're on fire, aren't they? When they go on stage, they just make anything funny.
I mean, it's just like, I mean, Richard Pryor, I mean, I always, every now and again, and I recommend it to anyone, just, even if you're feeling good in life, if you're feeling bad in life, if you're feeling anything, just go and read Richard Pryor's book or watch a bit of Richard Pryor, because it's just like,
he's brilliant.
Just the way he talks his life, because it doesn't, you know, people always go, oh God, I've had a hard life, I've had this. You think, no, you haven't. Watch Richard Pryor and look at the way he turns that into comedy.
Yeah, it's magical, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow. And just to listen to it, and the same with Robin Williams. I mean, Robin Williams, he's more of like, even though you don't really get to see his real life, but it's just mayhem, but it's just the way he observes things is beautiful. And I suppose Billy Connolly as well. Billy Connolly's so good at that.
I got to see him twice and he was incredible. He really was. It was just, how is he making all this up on the spot, and yet he's not. He knows exactly what he's doing. It was just phenomenal to see.
When did you see Billy Connolly?
I saw him about 2012, something like that. So he was getting on a bit, but he wasn't as sadly as ill as he is now. You know, he was still obviously gigging. It's a shame.
I saw him in I think, I can't remember, it was 2007 or 2010, and he was on, like, you know, we've all seen him obviously on telly and stuff, and I'd never seen him live. And I think it was Sean James actually who was saying, oh, let's go and watch this. So I went, it was during the week, and it was hilarious because I didn't know what to expect. Normally, if you see a show, and I didn't really watch that much live comedy, but if you go and see a show, you know, like, it's normally, there's a support act, there's a break, and then there's the main act. He's doing his, like, the show, the guy that you come to see do an hour or whatever. So Billy Connolly comes on, not even an announcement, comes on like 7:30 with like tracksuit bottoms or whatever, his baggy t-shirt, a piece of food. Then literally for 3 hours and like 10 minutes, he just banned that. It's just brilliant.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
No break, nothing. And then at the end of it, he just goes, thanks very much. Check you guys in. And it just walks on. You think, oh my God, that was amazing.
He could have carried on and on and on and on. Yeah. The other great one is Ken Dodd. I saw him a number of times. Yeah. And I once got into a playful argument with Ken Dodd. I saw him at Crewe. I used to live in Crewe for a while. Yeah. And his show wasn't going that well. And we got to the interval, and I said, no. I said to my mate, no, let's stay. And we came back. He came back on, and he started with a routine about what the newspaper was in Crewe. And two old ladies behind me, he said, what's the newspaper in Crewe? And these two went, oh, it's the Chronicle. And I turned around and went, no, it's the Mail. And they went, no, it's the Chronicle. He went, no, it's the Mail. And it floored him. He actually started laughing, and he looked at me and he said, well, where are you from, sir? I said, I'm from Carlisle. He said, all right, I'll see you Sunday. And at the end of it, the point of taking the mickey out of me for the rest of the half, which he did, was that he needed something from the audience, me on this case, and he gave me a thumbs up at the end of it. It was just wonderful to see, because he elevated that half. It was extraordinary. It is. It's all in my blog, all these stories.
He's good.
Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience, either as a comedian or before you became a comedian?
No, well, yeah, honestly, before I became a comic, didn't even know, like I said, I didn't know there was live gigs. I just thought that comics were like either old school, you know, that would wear like a bow tie and they would just do jokes, like jokes, that sort of thing, or they were like, I'd sort of heard about the alternative comedy, you know. I thought it was more like sketches or, you know, like groups and stuff. So no, I didn't know any of this, you know. I thought it was such a thriving, you know, you turn up to these but like I say, up north, there just wasn't that scene. And then when I did discover that this was happening, then I was too busy doing the gigs. So I was like literally every night. So this was the problem. I would love to go and watch them, but I was doing gigs. So it was like literally, oh God, I've got an open mic. I've got 2 gigs now. I've got to go and do this. And then, so I would try if it was, like I said, like Billy Connolly. I watched him live. Ken Dodd, I saw him in
just incredible.
He was brilliant, and it was me and my partner, the girlfriend, and she got the tickets because she'd never seen them either, and it was hilarious because we were literally the 2 youngest people by about 40 years.
Wow! No. When I saw him, I saw him at the London Palladium, and then I saw him in Carlisle at the Sand Centre, and the audiences were very different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very different. Oh, yeah. It was more older folk who had seen him before in Carlisle, but the Palladium where I think he'd played 6 weeks there and had the record there. It wasn't the time when I saw him, but the audience was so cross section. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't bother. I mean, it didn't bother me because I thought we loved it actually, and actually we loved it probably more just as much as like the older bit because the older people had grown up with him. Loads of times. Yeah. And I thought he was phenomenal. Do you know what I loved about him was he was clean. Yeah. He didn't have to, and he was a little bit cheeky, but no one's offensive. And also for a comic from that sort of age, if you watch a lot of them, they were a bit quite homophobic, racist, sexist. Yeah. He was great. He didn't do any of that. Didn't have to do any of that. And so I'd seen in Edinburgh, I think, did I see Bill Burr? I can't remember. I saw because in Edinburgh, you don't, that's the problem. People always go, oh God, you're in Edinburgh, there's 3,000 shows, you can get to see everyone. And do you know how many shows I see in Edinburgh? And I've been going every year performing. I will literally see about 3 shows for the whole month.
Oh, mate. Oh, no. Because you're too busy, of course. Yeah. If you're on a bill of acts, do you stay and watch them all if you're on first?
It depends what I'm doing. Because sometimes you're doubling up.
Yeah.
If I'm not doubling up and I've got a friend or someone that you know or something, then you'll try to.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's hard. I'd rather watch them when they do I'd rather watch them do for an hour. So it's because when you're doing patient bills, it's great, but you're all sort of just going so quick. You're going, I've only got 20. And also you probably know most of it because we've all worked with each other about, some people 5, 10 times, 100 times over the years. So you sort of know, you don't know each other's act, but you know what.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
I saw Tommy Tiernan in Edinburgh.
Oh, brilliant. There's another one.
Never seen him before in my life.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's really funny. He just rants, but they're so well constructed.
Brilliant.
Yeah. The reason why I've asked those last 2 questions is that there is a section in my blog called The Ones That Got Away, and I've written 25 comedians who have either passed on or I haven't been able to see. And top of the tree for me was Morecambe and Wise. They're the reason why I love comedy. I'd love to have seen them. I've seen everything else about them. But the other, also in there, as you've mentioned before, Dave Allen. I almost had a chance to go and see him, and I never did. He played a tour in London just before he died, and I couldn't get to see him. But Bob Monkhouse is in there, Norman Wisdom, Richard Pryor, as you say, Robin Williams, all these great comedy stars that I wish I had seen, but I have acknowledged them by putting them in the blog. Just before we go, is there anything else you would like to say? Where can you be found on social media? Have you got any online gigs coming up? Have you got any books that you're writing or podcasts, anything like that?
So basically, so I'm doing, I do my Zoom show every Wednesday night at 7:15 p.m. I always put all the details on my social media, or join my mailing list on my website has all the details. So if you join the website, www.patrickmonahan.co.uk. And And also I do obviously the Facebook Live every Saturday as well. But I have got my tour. It's so for this tour that's been postponed through 3 lockdowns. So it keeps.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, no, so it was literally meant to be in the spring last year, then it got pushed to autumn last year, then it got pushed back to spring this year, then it's getting pushed back to summer, autumn this year. So I've got that coming up.
What's that called, the title?
Well, it's meant to be started from the bottom, now I'm here.
Right.
Which is, but then I've got a new show as well called Classy. So it's like literally, I've still got like, it's like literally, am I still going to do this? Like, so my agents say, but the theatres have all built it as like, but he still hasn't done that show. I do my new show now, whatever. So it's like, because I know I do my tours, I go on new theatres. I do a lot of the same theatres as well. But the thing is, some theatres you can do every 12 months, and then some theatres you have to do every 2 years. So but then, so it's like, my whole thing is colliding now. They're going, okay, but what shows is he coming back doing this? So I've got that. And then, do you know what? People keep asking me about doing a podcast and stuff. So I've got an idea for a podcast that I'm going to be working on. And then I'm writing a book.
Wow.
And it's been great during lockdown because it's given me that time to actually get this stuff done.
Yeah.
But
well, I would love to read your book. I'll be first in the queue to buy it, and I'm going to come and see you on tour. And I can't wait to see you live again, live. Thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you all night. It's been all day. It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful chatting to you, and all the very best to you, my friend.
It's been lovely chatting to you as well. Thank you very much. So nice.
All the best.
So nice to chat to you, Richie. Cheers, man.
Thanks.